Hi everyone! So this is going to be a bit reflective of a video because today marks 6 years since my husband Steve passed from ALS. And while some people may expect these videos to be sad, I will say I have done a lot of work over the last 6 years and I am in a very healthy, happy place. And that's honestly why I'm able to talk about things in a vastly different place than I once was. I'm able to dig back into those journals and reopen old wounds and come back into the ALS community because I'm feeling so healed. I don't know. Healed is such a cliche these days. People talk about healing. We're always spending so much time healing. What about living? I'm feeling very alive. I'm feeling very thankful. I'm feeling very stable. And therefore, I'm able to talk about things in a lighter way than I was probably earlier. I don't even know that I would have even attempted to make a YouTube video even about Steve for the first 2 years after he passed, because ALS was cruel and the whole experience traumatized me. And I've been reading old journals, and something I found recently stuck with me. I mean, sticky like duct tape. I read a journal from a point of time in which I was snapping. I had a full mental breakdown while I was a caregiver. And just for some backstory, whenever I said yes to Steve, we dated for 4 months. He got diagnosed, proposed 2 days later. We got married 2 months later. It was a whirlwind. And up until that point, Steve and I really didn't fight. Our wedding night was our first fight, and that's when I was like, oh, I don't know that I know what I just got into, because it was a pretty crazy fight for our wedding night. I went into the caregiving journey, this phase of my life. I was 26 and was really convinced that I was just going to continue to be the rainbow and sunshine, always happy, never angry. I can do anything. I'm always positive. My name is Hope. I was sincerely convinced that that's who I was going to continue to be. And that is who I tried to be. And to the extent of which Steve really lashed his anger out on me in the early stages of his ALS. And I was determined just to take it. I mean, I was justifying all of it because I'm like, I don't know what it's like to be given a terminal illness. I know what it was like to be told that I'm about to die and I'm about to lose my body piece by piece, and the death is going to be very uncomfortable. I had no idea what that must have felt like, and I just felt like it was my wifely caregiving duty to take it. And it wasn't until some friends and family intervened because what was going on was insane. And I finally was able to sort of set some boundaries. You can read more of the full story of all of that, all the details, when my book is written, because there's just so much to it. But I did not stand up for myself or advocate for myself really until I had like a full mental breakdown. In that moment, I recognized something that was really powerful. I wrote this journal entry. I mean, I was scribbling. I was so angry about how I'm so sick of people calling me selfless, because I have a self and I've lost it. And people call people selfless all the time as a compliment. It is a thing, especially if you're a caregiver or a parent or a hardworking nurse or even therapist or whatever healing capacity you're holding. There's a lot of times people will be like, oh my gosh, you're so selfish. You're so lovely for doing all the things you're doing. And what we don't realize is that's encouraging people to lose their selves. Had I gone into the caregiving journey prepared with boundaries, recognizing I am a whole ass self who deserves to be respected and have my time and be advocated for just as much as the person I was taking care of, I would have had a vastly different caregiving journey. And this has felt so important for me to talk about. I just haven't really had the headspace to talk about it. So here we are. If you really think about the word selfless, you are becoming less of yourself. You're needing less, from yourself, from other people, it literally is asking you to disappear. And we're throwing these out willy-nilly as a compliment. So I have a breakdown, of course. I had several, but the first one, I had the first breakdown. Finally lashed out at Steve for the first time in a serious way. And he had messaged his parents and they came over. And I was so angry because I thought, oh, now everyone's all of a sudden concerned. Where have you all been? Hello? And raged, just raged. I had so much rage and I expressed some of it. Then actually started talking to a therapist online, a virtual therapist. And I remember her whole spiel was, hey, your anger is sacred. And I was like, yeah, I know. However, it is so unfamiliar to me. I have been caught up in this loop, this caregiving loop, this give everything of myself loop. My entire identity was wrapped up in being this like perfect angel. My dad was angry. I'm not angry. What are you talking about? It was so uncomfortable for my nervous system for me to even imagine advocating for myself, standing up for myself, anything, showing anger, expressing anger. And so I just kept having an allergic reaction to this therapist, and God love her, she was doing what seemed appropriate in her time and in her experience with me. Is she wanted to validate the fact that, hey, being angry is okay. Like you don't have any boundaries. And if you do, they're not being respected. You're doing this 100% on your own. Everything is very stressful. At this point, I'd already been traumatized by ALS. Like Steve had coded and died, and we just went through so many things. I was traumatized by the volatility of Steve and ALS, and the therapist was just trying to guide me into acceptance around my anger, and I couldn't accept it. I still could not accept it. And then my friends actually introduced me to making art because we were making an art project with Steve, and I just felt so alive in those art days and thought, I have no idea how to paint, but boy, is this fun. And so I started painting, and honestly, that saved my life. Y'all have no idea how much I was about to burn the house down with us in it until I found creativity and myself again. So it was the journey of self-discovery that truly brought me back. And it's not that I ever did anything perfect, and it's not that it stopped me from having a few more mental breakdowns just because the load of it all was way too much. And Steve was still very, very angry about pain and being in pain and not being able to constantly be medicated. And that was a childhood wound of mine, and we just played that out with each other so perfectly, which in the grand scheme of things, I'm very thankful because it resolved and healed and brought up and did so much transformation for me and for him. Thankfully for both of us, we were able to work out all of our shit while he was still here. So we were able to come to a peaceful place by the time he passed. Thank God for both of us because he could die with integrity and I could still talk about Steve with that love story that everyone knows us as. And that is true. That's, two things are always true. We were love and we were chaos. So, discovering myself was truly the gift that gave everything back to me. I remember the first time somebody sent me a video about caregiving fatigue. I was so annoyed at the video. I remember she was doing a TED Talk talking about the only way to combat caregiving fatigue is really to give yourself the same care you're giving to the other person. And I was like, I had been trying that. I was studying herbalism to help Steve's wounds and also to build his hemoglobin, and I started just obsessing over the way herbalism was helping me, my achy back, and teas that just made me feel calm. Oat straw was my best friend. I drank it all the time for my nervous system. Ashwagandha became my best friend. Like, I just fell in love with herbs. And I was pouring so much into myself, but I still had very little care left at the end of every one of my days. And I remember being really annoyed at the caregiving fatigue resolution being just take care of yourself as much as you're taking care of someone else. Because truly, the only thing throughout the whole time was to A, know myself, see myself as worthy of the same attention, and then allow myself to play. Play. Because everything else was so freaking serious. I mean, talk about a most intense type of room you walk into where you have a man who's completely bedbound on a ventilator being fed via an IV, has wounds everywhere, and his lungs are failing, and yeah, like we were intense, and he had to talk on a Toby with his eyes, and everything was very serious. Had to play. And when I'm talking about play, I had to frolic in my garden and giggle with the birds and write silly poems about the squirrels that visited me and name them. And I had to make art in every capacity that I was curious to try to make art. I made necklaces, I made weavings, I painted. I got into decorating our house. Like every single surface of our house was covered with art, very similar to every surface of my house now. Hashtag not a minimalist. Play was the ticket to the fatigue. Because if everything feels so serious and you just are needed so much, you're never really getting a break. The concept of like truly taking care of yourself, like going and having a week where you're not needed, you get to totally regulate your nervous system, like oming and awing and breathing and massaging. That was not ever a possibility for my reality. And it's not a possibility for very many people's caregiving realities. So I am just here to let you all know, if you've ever been called selfless, you have a self. Your self matters so very much. And you discovering things about yourself is going to give life back to you, because you are interesting and just as worthy of attention and care that you're giving to the person. And in this self-discovery, what does play look like to you? Some people, play looks like playing a sport. Some people, it's playing chess. Y'all and your brains. Some people, it's playing instruments, making music. Whatever feels like you're truly tapping into that childlike joy that we all lose as adults, that is going to be your antidote to the caregiving fatigue. That is going to be the thing that sustains you through this journey. And you are so deserving of your time, because you are a person, you are a self, you are self-full. Have an equal opposite reaction to, oh, you're so full of yourself. For the very same reason. I'm a Leo sun and a Leo rising and an Aries moon. I am all fire, and I am literally, look at me, all the time. And when people try to take that and make me feel like, oh, you're so into yourself, it gives me an allergic reaction, because first of all, I'm not just into myself, but yes, I am into myself. I take care of myself. I tend to myself. I meet my needs. I care about myself. I love myself. If that makes you feel uncomfortable, this is your invitation to also do the same thing for yourself. But it doesn't stop at that. I also do that same thing for other people. I teach people to love themselves and to know themselves and explore and be curious about themselves. I hype people up. So people that are full of themselves often have so much love for themselves that they can sit in front of anybody and give that back to them. Small tangent, just for the love of all that is holy. Stop saying people are selfless, please. And truly, if you see somebody who is trying to be the Mother Teresa, which I was, please hold space for them and mirror back that they are deserving of every human emotion that comes up. I played good at the expense of myself. Oh, I'm not mad. My feelings aren't hurt. I'm not traumatized by this at all. It's okay. I can swallow this. And it damn near killed me. And now, everyone always asks me, would you go and do the same thing with Steve if you had to play the whole thing over again? Yes, 100% I would do it again. I loved that man, and that whole experience expanded me in ways I would have never been expanded upon had I not gone through it. It was the most profound experience of my life. However, if I had gotten to know what I know now, I would have done it so differently. But that's the thing about life. We don't know something until we know something. And so I did not know how detrimental it was to me to feed into the selfless rule until I exploded. And shame nearly swallowed me whole. And it was really the most proud I've ever been of myself when I was able to forgive myself. And forgiveness is not, oh, I justify my bad behavior, I'm just going to keep being an asshole. No. No. Forgiveness is, hey, you were not feeding anything into yourself. How did you expect yourself to not crash and burn? It's saying, hey, take care of yourself so that you don't go do this thing again. There's an integration when it comes to like learning your shadow, which I call this whole experience facing my shadow for the first time. And I'm never going to pretend that I'm not going to lose my shit ever again for as long as I live, so help me speak. That's not reality. And the truth is, I now understand that if I don't take care of myself, if I don't remember that I am a self, prioritize my needs, give to myself, take care of myself, play, breathe, move all of this out of my body, that shadow very likely could return. Guess what though? She also deserves love. She deserves love as much as the rainbows and sunshine hope does. And that's the real truth about being a whole ass self, is you learn to love all of your pieces, the anger, the rage, the despair, the desperation, the longing, the needs, all of it. It is so worthy. You are so worthy. Even if I tried not to be in reflection during the month of March, I can't help it because the entirety of March, knew he was dying. It was the most intense. I had to basically bag him and deplug his lungs and just make his lungs work half of the day for a full month. And in my body, I knew. You could read my old journals and you're like, oh my gosh, that girl just knew exactly everything that was happening. Conversations I documented with our teams, they all knew. We all knew. It lives in my body. I was sitting on my couch in the beginning of March and questioning, why do I feel off? I've done so much work within myself in this past year, and I've been feeling so good and at home and safe, stable, on the right path, making momentum, creatively tapped in. What is wrong? And it only dawned on me because I've been reading old journals, and I happen to have come across my journal from 2020, which was a wild year anyways, despite losing your husband. I was reading this old journal and realized what I was feeling in my body was my body remembering. And I do somatic therapy all the time on myself because I have felt how trauma just sticks to you. I mean, it's 6 years after Steve has passed, and I still will hear his vent and jump up thinking I didn't save him, or will panic sometimes when it's a really bad storm and we lose power because I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to keep him alive? Our ventilator. And I'm like, it's been 6 years. So trauma really does just stay in us, and we have to be so intentional about moving it out. And that's why I am the queen of moving my body, dancing and yoga and walking and doing somatic therapy. It is a game changer. It's why I'm so good 6 years later after all of that. I took care of Steve for 9 years, and we had help, but not really. And I got fatigued of asking for help, so I often tried to do things on my own. And it was a very, very intense journey. There was so much value in it, so much that I have learned. And every time I reflect on it, I get something even deeper. But I think possibly this selfless conversation is one that is a game changer. And I want us to just be very mindful about the words we're using. Words cast spells. The way we willy-nilly throw things out, I could give a million examples and maybe I'll make a separate video on that. Comment below if you want me to. But selfless, no, I'm not here for it. You're a whole ass self. And that whole ass self comes with beauty and brutal bullshit. And it's all to be loved. And it's all worthy of love. Love. You feel that? I know Steve would be really proud of me. And I wrote this in my journal recently because I was just reflecting and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to share about Steve this year. And something in me just felt proud of myself. And I've been proud of myself this whole year. I've really leveled up. But it didn't feel like it was mine. It was a very interesting, unique feeling that I feel with him when I see a hawk or when I see a feather or something just like reminds me of him. And I just was writing in my journal, and so often as I write in my journal, I just let whatever wants to come out, come out. It's oftentimes channeling, really. And I wrote, you know, he's really proud of you. And I knew it was him in that moment. And I know he is, because he knows our whole journey and what I went through, and he knows how hard it was for me to actually sort through all the things that came up, and to see me where I'm at now, where I'm actually fully feeling present in every day. I'm not dissociating. I'm not being traumatized or triggered. I'm not falling into old patterns, making healthy choices. It's the best way I can honor that man, really, truly. I wake up every day with full awareness of, oh my gosh, I have an able body. I can get out of bed. I can eat food. I can drink water. I can breathe. What a blessed experience, y'all. When's the last time you just simply were like, I took a breath? How awesome is that? How often do you eat food and think, wow, I can actually swallow? I can swallow this food. Steve's stomach stopped working. He couldn't even eat via feeding tube because his stomach stopped working. He had something called gastroparesis. So like he was fed via an IV for the last 5 years of his life. That's crazy. I'm going to go make food and enjoy it now in honor of him. Yes, absolutely. Love y'all.